So I'm here today with Karen Rollings. Karen, I've been associated with for almost 40 years of real estate. She inspired me to get into real estate, and she's done, I think, over 3,500 transactions. Is that right?
Something like that.
And those are a lot of listings and, of course, a lot of buyers that she's done. But also, one thing about Karen is she's been involved in auctions for a long time. So I just wanted to talk to her today about just to give people an idea of the process of auctions. Of course, there's many advantages to auctions, especially in today's market. It's very hard to get anything in the MLS that doesn't have, I think, an overabundance of buyers clamoring and competitive offers. At least with a foreclosure at an auction, there's not quite as much competition. Isn't that correct?
With the auctions, there is competition, but it's not the same type of competition, because when you buy something at the auction, the last one I bought, there were about 15 or 20 of us on the auction steps bidding. But I would say probably after the first few minutes, there were 3 of us. So people get knocked out quickly. A lot of people go to the auctions and they think they're going to steal it. They think they're going to get it 50 cents on the dollar, and they're not. So it's usually like 2 or 3 people.
Right, right. And so these auctions, of course, these are people that have gone through foreclosure and they've lost their house. And I guess the nice thing about buying auctions in this environment is that when you go to sell the house, it's much easier to sell a house than it has been in other markets. Isn't that right?
That's correct. So the one that I just did, I purchased it in early December, and it takes about 4 months to go through the system because the judge has to ratify it. So I bought it at the courthouse steps. I gave them a deposit of $70,000. It's usually about 10%. And then it takes that long to get to the point where you can actually close. The ad says you have to close in 10 days, but in reality, it's at least 60 days before it gets through the court system and you can actually close on the house. So we closed in March. We did a little fix up, put it back on the market in April, and we will close May 6th. We resold it to another person, and then we'll close and then buy another one.
Ah, and how much profit can a person expect? I know there's each case is going to be individual.
That's a really good question. So
Yeah.
I've lost money. I've made money. On this particular one, I bought it because I thought, well, maybe I might move into it because it was Rambler with a garage, master bedroom on the first floor. So I thought I might move into this one because I had sold my house to my daughter. But with the market going up, I thought, I think I'm just going to go ahead and sell it. So on that one, I would say the profit on that one is about 100,000 at the end of the day, after all your expenses. And there are a lot of them.
Right, right. So it's not for the faint of heart. And now these properties, you get a list of where they are. Do you have a chance to inspect the properties first before you go to the auction?
Sometimes you do. So occasionally you'll go to one and it's vacant and the door's not locked. So you can walk in and inspect it. Most of the time they're still occupied or there's no way to get in. So you buy them sight unseen. So the one that I bought years ago when my daughter now is like, I think she's 33 or 34. Her name's Maggie. And we bought the house, my primary residence, we bought on the courthouse steps in Montgomery County, Maryland. And there were 2 bidders that day because it had snowed. So there was a couple inches of snow on the ground. So a lot of people stayed home. So we bid on the house, and once we were successful with the bidding, we gave them our deposit, which was $15,000. And then I called the agent that had previously had the house listed, and I said, do you know the people in the house? And she said, yes, I do. And I said, can you help me get them out? So she offered them money to move, and they moved.
And then
It
you're
doesn't
able to,
always work that well.
right, there are certain risks.
There are. So recently, well, a few years ago, my youngest son, Jeremy, he bought a house in Germantown and at the courthouse steps. And when we went out and knocked on the door, we realized that there were people living in the house. And there were not only people living in the house, but there were large dogs in the house, like huge dogs. And so we had to have the people evicted. We had to file in court. it was a fiasco. So if you can't get somebody in there to do the appraisal, you're not going to be able to get a normal loan. So you have to close for cash or you have to get a hard money loan. A hard money loan is a loan that's at a much higher interest rate, but they don't really care. They're betting on the fact that the property is worth what you're paying for it, but they charge a much higher interest rate. And fortunately, we were able to get into the property and we were able to get the appraisal and we were able to close, but it came with the dogs and with the, I think, tenants that I don't think were really tenants. I think they had just gone into the house. So it took about 9 months to get them out. So during that 9-month period, you have to be prepared to make payments on the house, maintain the house, have insurance on the house until you can get them evicted. So that one took a while.
Right. So I guess obviously each one is a case-by-case basis. Now, the nice thing is you have a lot of experience with this. So if someone wants to buy a foreclosure with our branch of EXP Real Estate, we can discuss these, properties with them. And how does that work? It's like a 3% finder's fee if we help them.
Yes. So when we meet with a buyer, they sign a buyer agency agreement, and it says that they are going to pay us 3% of the sales price in a commission. But normally the seller pays it. So if it's in the MLS, the seller pays that commission. But if we buy it at the auction, the buyer has to pay it. So in one that I just did this week, it's a townhouse in Silver Spring, Maryland. We bought it. My investor, I went to the auction with their money. We bought it for $350,000. The house is worth $430,000. So they need to pay me my 3% commission, which is about $9,000. So they don't mind paying me $9,000 to get a house that's at 80% of value. So they're happy to pay.
$80,000 in equity.
Yes. Yes. So
Which,
it's a good one.
Which you would probably never find in the MLS, a house with 80,000 equity just sitting there.
No way. I mean, the one I just sold a few weeks ago, I listed it for $430,000 and it went for $460,000. So people are overpaying for houses right now. If you can get a property at an auction, that's a good day. Now, what we do is we don't just buy them without seeing them. So the one that I bought in Howard County in December, I sent one of my colleagues, Andrew, up to the house, and he was supposed to call me and tell me what he saw. So I said, "Does it look occupied?" He said, "I don't think so." I said, "Are there any lights on?" He said, "No." I said, "Are there any houses nearby that look friendly?" And he said, "Yeah, there's a house across the street with a bunch of Christmas lights on it." I said, "Okay, go over to that house, knock on the door, and say, 'My name is Andrew. My boss, Karen, told me to come out and look at this house to see if it's vacant or if it's occupied. Do you know if the owners have left or if they're still there?" And the people said, "Oh, no, they've been gone for 6 months. Home run, they're gone." So we bid on that house. That's the one that closes on May 6th. So we bid on the house. We were able to be aggressive because we had insider information. We knew that the occupants were gone. So once you purchase the house, you have to wait 30 days to see if the old owners file an exception. So I can't go in the house for 30 days. So once that's done, then you can go in and check on the house and make sure that it's safe. Once the judge ratifies it, then you have what's called equitable title, and you can go and do whatever you want to it. So then we went in and made sure that the pipes hadn't burst and the house was secured and homeless people hadn't moved in and things like that. But the house was purchased for $709, and it's worth $900. So that's a safe bet. Even if the people had been in there, you could go through the eviction process, but you'd have to get like a hard money loan to make it work. But it's still, you're buying them so far under market that the risk sort of offsets the gain, if that makes sense.
Right. And there's many possibilities of auctions. I mean, so if one is too risky, you don't have to bid on that because there might be some other ones where you feel much better.
Correct. So in December when I bought these three, I bought one in Frederick County, one in Montgomery County, and one in Howard County. And the best one was Howard County. The one in Frederick County needed some work, and we had to go through the permitting process to get utilities on. But the bottom line is that you're saving so much money. So I've done probably 200 of these flips, fix it up, make it pretty, put it back on the market, make some money. I've lost money on a few, but most of the time you're making money. And right now, what's sort of incredible is the people that are going to foreclosure now, their houses are undervalued because they got behind in their payments before the 2020 running up of the prices. So in 2020, when COVID hit, the prices were a little bit flat, and they had been flat for about 15 years. Then they went up 10% in 2020 and another 10% in 21 in our marketing area. That's a lot of appreciation in a short period of time. So if somebody was in default in 2019, they're going to go to auction at a much lower price than what they would if they had bought it more recently. So you can get a really decent buy right now.
Great. Well, I think if anyone's interested, they can get in touch with us and we can talk more about it. And if you're really interested, you can sign a buyer's agreement with us and we can help you get an auction. And I guess in most cases, like you said, the deposit is usually 10% of what the final value might be.
It's usually 10%. So if they're going to start the auction at 600,000, the deposit's going to be 60,000. And then what we do is we pull it up. I have somebody on my staff who researches the foreclosure. So I get a list every week and it'll tell you what the deposit is. And then we check with Zillow and the different websites for value. And you'll have a house that'll range from 500,000 to 600,000. So we know that it's worth at least 500 on the low side. And then if the deposit's only 40,000, then we know that the mortgage is about 400. That's a good auction to go to. We also send out letters ahead of time to people who it hasn't gone to auction yet. So we send the letter out saying, hey, we can stop your foreclosure. Give us a call. We have a cash buyer. So we pick them up that way as well.
Great. Well, great. Thanks for all this information. And if anyone has more interest, feel free to give us a call and we can discuss, your particular circumstance and what you're looking for. And I guess you just make the check out to yourself and you endorse it over to the attorney at the auction, I guess, huh?
Correct. So I would have a bank
check for 60,000 made out to John Wubbenhorst, and then
exactly.
If I win the auction, I just say, please pay the order of this attorney or whoever.
Correct. And you give it to the attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say your buyer's name is John Doe. At the auction, you would sign your name, agent for John Doe, and that sale would go into their name. And a lot of people, when they're buying these properties, they're putting in an LLC, which we can go into when we talk further about it. Sometimes it makes sense to put your properties in an LLC.
Right. Okay. So anyway, because we have this opportunity of Karen's experience, if you're interested in this, we can kind of hold their hand through the process.
Absolutely.
And also in the process, we have connections with many good contractors and people like that. So you don't have to feel you're just jumping off a cliff without help if you want to get into these auctions.
That's correct.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot, Karen, for answering these questions.
Sounds good. Have a great night, John. Thanks.
Okay. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.